selling real one Chevy.
Hey everyone, welcome to I Just Watched. I'm Joseph, and we're about to jump into the Rings of Power, episode 4 and 5. But before we do, gotta hit you with the usual. Hope you like this enough to smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the little bell to get notified. Official spoiler warning for episodes 4 and 5. 5 is much better, but starting with 4. The opening, I did not expect to witness a vision of the destruction of Numenor. I thought that was actually really cool. Sitting there, I was like, oh shit. Like, right off the bat, I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be kind of a crazy episode. Let me focus. Other than that, I was like, okay, it was a good episode, but it left me with so many damn questions. I think that's the only reason I was like hesitant with episode 4. They don't really explain why the Numerians hate the elves so much. Like why they were so against continuing to just be just cordial. Curious if they're gonna dive into that a little bit further. Hopefully they do. Also, I don't remember if in the books if Farazan is so fucking shady, because he's like playing both sides quite clearly. I know he gets corrupted by Sauron with the ring, the one ring to rule them all, but I don't remember him being such a piece of shit beforehand in the books. So I want to, if you remember, can you let me know, was his character always shady, or are they making him a little bit more nefarious? This has nothing to do with any importance, but I love this. So I wanted to reference it. When the acting queen of Numenor there is having a discussion with Galadriel, Elendil, and they're talking about like lords and stuff like that, and like making this joke, and he goes, "Just a petty lord," and he kind of like, ha ha ha, and she looked at him, and he was like, I thought it was funny. It stuck with me. I thought the show was hilarious. Adar, clearly an elf, but like, is some kind of fallen, corrupt an elf? The whole not a god yet. Is he trying to sacrifice himself, allow Sauron to come back to life, maybe as a host body, or there needs to be a blood sacrifice to allow Sauron to come back, and he's willing, and that's gonna make him godly? I don't know. I'm curious to see who that character becomes or what he turns into, because clearly it's gonna go somewhere. That I'm leading into Theo. I don't really like this character too much, but part of me is like, is he being corrupted by the sword, but really by the hilt, Sauron's hilt? Part of me wants to say he is getting corrupted by the hilt, but at the same time, he was kind of a dick to begin with. Is it really the sword, or was the sword kind of like, oh, this dude above me is a dick, find me? The biggest part of this episode, of course, Old Mine, Mithril, the Balrog, Palantir. He touched it and got some fucking wild ass vision. Oh, that's also, before I almost forgot this, the dude from the Southland being like, worshiping Sauron. I was like, man, y'all some pieces of shits on that side, for real. No wonder y'all got cursed and whatnot. Y'all suck. Before I jump into episode 5, I thought this was funny. I remember when I watched it, I was like, cool, this is definitely the beginning of the middle that eventually leads to the end. And I say that because this is the beginning of the initial war against Sauron, but really it's just the beginning of the middle, because that initial defeat in the initial war against Sauron, the midpoint before we get to the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship, before we get to that journey, which leads to the real defeat. My boy, the Iron Giant, the Wizard, the Meteor Man, whatever we want to call him. For one, this is the episode with the most like interesting piece to, I was gonna say the Half-Foots, that's not it, to the hobbits. All right, this part of their journey story was the most enticing so far. But I say that because I'm definitely expecting the Swizzard, the Meteor Man, with his magic use and the whole perils and seeing them take this journey, helping them get there. I feel like as a gift or some kind of sacrifice, create the Shire for them. Who is that evil looking ass person who shows up at the crash site? Looking like some evil witch king priest thing, person, monster, it with the face and no. Random moment, kind of like just a petty lord. Not important at all. Made me laugh. Is when they were loading the horse onto the ship. You just see it like, when the claw machine, you pick it up and it goes like this. The horse is like that. And then out of nowhere, you hear just the neigh. Those were wolves, bruh. Those did not look like wolves. They didn't look like war. They looked like, all I know is that in the second age of Lord of the Rings, apparently, wargs and wolves looked wonky as fuck. They were all dropped as pups. The whole litter. Because they look wonky. Like all of them. They're like wolves. I was like, oh, cool, let me see this wolf. And then I saw it, I was like, it just kind of looked like a big boar more than it did a wolf. We see Galadriel, clearly fucking a badass elf warrior for a reason. She was just basically just dodging everything. And I definitely thought that Isildur was going to show up and be the one to take his piece of flesh and get promoted. I was wrong. I figured that was how they were going to get him on the ship. He got on in a much shittier way. Why do they say lieutenant with like that weird? I don't know if it's an accent. I feel like they don't say lieutenant. They say lieutenant. Like there's this weird. I was like, My subtitles say lieutenant, but you said something else quite clearly. Is that just me? Am I tripping? The High King feels shady, even though he tells Elrond what's going on. He still feels kind of shady. I'm not a fan of him. Don't trust him. I'm on Durin's side. All right, that's my boy. Also, I thought it was actually pretty cool and beautiful. We got to see that little, because the Silmarillion is, multiple stories that make up the world. So I thought it was cool that, we got a piece of, you see the Balrog, the elf, the tree, how Mithril or the ore was created. That was cool. And just to see the Balrog, and I was like, hey, one of these days my boy Gandalf can come whoop your ass. Other than this glimpse, are we going to see Moria get destroyed by the Balrog as they continue to dive deeper for Mithril? Because clearly they need it. Also, I don't remember Mithril being this important. Because hot diggity dog, I knew they would mine it like crazy, but I thought it was, from what I remember, it was less of a you need this, so I'm going to do it for you, and more of this greed thing that sadly the dwarves kind of fall into. It's one of the demons they have to deal with. So I thought it was more of that. Maybe this gives it more meaning. Am I wrong? Is it actually accurate? I don't remember. So if you do remember them having such a kind of a meaningful reason, like he wants to save his homies and the elves, like it's a good reason. But was that why they kept digging? I always thought it was more of a greed thing from what I remember. Again, I could be wrong. Let me know, por favor, please, down below. Why did Farazan's son blow up the ship? Especially after the conversation he had with his dad, Farazan. He was like, no, we can prosper for this war and have a king who can be indebted to us, and Numenor can, keep prevailing and da da da. And then he went and blew up the ship. I definitely thought, because you smiled during that conversation, it was one of those like, I see what you're doing, Pops. I'm on your side with this. I was wrong. Secondly, what did I miss in this episode for Isildur's made-up sister to be so against it? Also, the fact that we learned that the hilt is actually a key. I mean, it's still his sword, but it's actually a key, and I'm assuming it's a key to unleash Sauron himself. I'm liking pieces of the show a lot. There's also pieces of the show that I'm kind of just like, it's kind of dragging is probably not the best way to put it, but it just feels kind of lackluster. But I say that because Prince Durin, every time my boy is on screen, I love it. My boy said, and I quote, "Give me the meat and give it to me raw." I said, pause. I paused the show. I said, wait a minute. I've never heard someone ask someone to divulge like that. And I'm going to have to borrow it. I'm going to have to use that shit. I'm going to go to people when they're like, have something to tell you. I'm going to be like, yo, just give me the meat and give it to me raw. I'm going to have to use that shit. But also, afterwards, he tells him the scenario. He sits down and he's like, oh, fuck, and everyone's like, yeah, like, literally, my kind is, like, our life, our future's in your hands. My boy said, whose hands? I was like, bruh, can we just focus on Prince Durin more? Because my boy's funny. He's entertaining. I care about his character. He's the only thing so far that I'm really, really, like, giving a damn about. Him and Elendil, them two boys, need a buddy cop medieval show or something. Anyways, I want to hear your thoughts. How do you feel about the show so far? I mean, we got 3 episodes left, if I remember correctly. 6, 7, 8. Yep, so 3 episodes left. It's trying to build, and I understand that, but parts of it just feel wonky. So I'm liking it, but it's the show hasn't truly like pulled me in and won me over. My favorite parts are just the references to what I know comes with The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and references or pieces of the actual mythos from the books. Those are my favorite parts, and the show should be pulling me in more, I feel. But I want to hear your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, requests down below. But until next time, stay safe, be well, adios.